Hello, this is Victor speaking. I'm your host for this session, representing IGF.
Hi, good morning. Nice to meet you.
Hello, nice to meet you. I will first read some reminders for you for this session, meaning that you can show your initial presentation while the session is starting, if you have one ready, of course, and also you can take some snapshots, print screens of this session and attach it in your report later. And you also might have questions from the audience that are asked via the IGF webpage, and there was a dedicated link sent to session organizers. If you don't have one, I can provide you with it. Just let me know. And okay, I will then copy paste for you the link shortly in the chat. And also the important rule is that the chat feature is for social chat only, and only the Q&A feature is used to ask questions. So if anyone from the public would like to ask a question to the panelists, please use the Q&A feature and not the social chat. Also, if you would like to take a floor, also please use the Q&A feature. Thank you very much and have a very successful session.
Thank you so much.
Also a reminder that this session is recorded and is conducted, it's hosted under the IGF Code of Conduct and UN rules and regulations. Please respect that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So as far as I remember, the session starts 10 past, so we still have 4 minutes.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Thank you. Hello. I will try now to share my screen. Okay, could you verify if that works?
Yeah, sure. Yes, everything is fine and clear and visible. One more thing from my side. My name is Łukasz. I'm a co-host. We're Victor. We are doing our best to make all technical issues work well. I just want to say that there's a possibility that there will be a few Q&As that will not be as visible as probably you as a panelist would wish. So in that moment, in that instance, we will just let you know that a few Q&As questions are waiting for your answers. And so if you will see in the chat that such thing happened, please remember that we will have this in mind.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. I still have 2 minutes, so I will just grab some water, and I will be back in a second.
Yeah, you should be able now to see the link to check the questions from the audience that might have been asked on the IGF website. Thank you.
Right, thank you. I will be checking by the end of the presentation. So I think we can begin now. This will be a pretty brief session. Good morning to everyone. My name is Jan Zygmuntowski. I'm the Secretary of Program Council at think tank Instrat, which is a Warsaw-based economic think tank focusing on progressive public policy. I also teach and still study because I'm a PhD candidate at the Koźmiński University here in Warsaw. So this presentation is a pretty short one. It's a brief 15 minutes presentation and then also Q&A and discussion to summarize almost a year now of the work of the expert coalition of the Polish Charter of Digital Sovereignty. So the charter was initiated by Instrat think tank at the end of this year. The lockdown and the pandemics that hit in Poland in March delayed the beginning of our operations, but in early April we launched the expert works. For half a year, we have been conducting meetings, talks, preparing reports, trying to understand the various problems related to digital sovereignty and how to create this charter, which would be like a full code of regulations, a full codex, something like a Polish version of the Digital Services Act, which could somehow regulate the many problems related to digital space. But this talk is named Digital Sovereignty for States, Nations, or Users, because we want to show the different perspectives that we encountered talking to either economists from think tanks which focus very much on the budget issues, and then to main union leaders, like for example Solidarność, which is the biggest trade union in Poland. So we saw very different perspectives and very different understandings of what is wrong and what are the main issues. Everybody has their own main issue in digital economy, and we want to share today these insights. On the left, there is a picture of the outcome. I'm very sorry because for now the report is in Polish only, but it kind of sums up the many problems that we found on the national level. So first of all, in trying to understand what is digital sovereignty, we looked this time not to academic papers and not to scholarly definitions, but trying to understand what is digital sovereignty as a keyword in the political public space, how people understand it, what ideas do they refer to. And the main context in which it was used in Poland, at least, was the words of the ex-Minister of Development, Jadwiga Emilewicz, who in a letter of 4 ministers of development, so Poland, Italy, France, and Germany, they created this common letter to the European Commission where they referred to issues of digital sovereignty primarily in the context of market power and in the distortions of competition on digital markets. So, and in this letter, they referred to, or they claimed that we as Europe should also have some kind of digital champions. So digital sovereignty here would mean something like having your own champions, having strong economic players which can provide different rules and can bring more competition into the market. Then, for example, a differing opinion comes from the Chancellor of Germany, Angela Merkel, who defines digital sovereignty as the ability of individuals, so pointing to users and citizens as well, and the society at large, to shape digital transformation. So seeing digital transformation as a process, and then people and the society. So a very social focused view on shaping of this digital transformation. So technology serves people. And then the view of the European Commission mostly is that the digital sovereignty has to be about fairness and has to be about setting some fair rules. And those fair rules apply both in terms of people and in terms of market power. So the very first question of defining digital sovereignty is defining who is actually the subject of digital sovereignty, who is the person, or who is the organization, who is the actor, the agent here, who has this capacity. And when we try to take a look at the different actors and the different people who speak in this field, we see that we can have digital sovereignty of the nation state and of international organizations, so intra-governmental bodies. And here, most of the time, it refers to control over infrastructure. So this is the a digital Cold War over 5G. This is the talks about cloud, but also it is about fair market competition. So it is about our economic agents and the outside economic agents, and what are the possibilities for fair competition, for equity between these agents, and for bringing in the best value instead of, for example, monopolistic rents which destroy the economy. Then we have the subject of digital sovereignty, which is the nation. And so it could be, nation could be a state, but sometimes nations are smaller than states, or they could be communities. They could be local countries, or like, for example, the Basque country. It's not a legally recognized state, right? But it is a nation of some kind, a community of some kind on its own. So here, very often on the smaller scale and without the power of the state, we see the focus on some kind of local or regional laws. Sometimes it's cities which try to do this. Sometimes it's regions which try to shape a different path of the development by having some local laws. This could, for example, refer also to California, which has a very different look out of all United States regions, right? It has out of all the states, it has very different perspective, especially on personal data, here going into the steps of European Union, but also on protection of gig workers. And then also there is a very big perspective of the socioeconomic impact. So especially local regions, communities can be impacted by, for example, misinformation online, which can influence some kind of ethnic tensions. They can be influenced by, for example, spread of sharing economy, so to speak. So the very predatory platform capitalism of, for example, Airbnb or Uber, which has a strong impact on local housing market, on work conditions. So this is very often local communities which try to assess the socioeconomic impact and respond to it. And then we have the perspective of users, citizens, somehow in both of these roles. Sometimes also we add the role of consumers. So here, very often it is the perspective of new human rights, digital rights of some kind, rights to data, right to be forgotten, rights related to being identified by your online identity and having power over your online identity. And this is also the perspective of empowerment and decision-making. So very often the critique that, you know, Facebook, for example, has a community standards, but actually no user, no citizen has ever participated in a process of creating of these community standards. So the question is whether there is a strong standard of empowerment, and is there really decision making in this context? So trying to very briefly tell you where we went with our campaign. In April this year, we finally established the coalition, which tried to encompass very different actors. As I mentioned, there were lawyers focusing on competition and consumer law. There were economists focusing on budget and fiscal policy. We had also trade unions. We had experts on the housing market. We had technology and innovation experts, and even in the end, parents and influencers on Instagram who joined the Digital Detox Day campaign, trying to create more awareness in this in this very soft field, which doesn't require people to know legal intricacies, but what it requires is just to join the campaign and switch off for one day. So, but from the very onset, there was a very strong understanding from all coalition members that smaller communities are unable to exercise any kind of control over the biggest platforms. And it was very hard to convince other coalition members, even that digital services tax, for example, or that some strengthening of competition authorities is possible on a local, state, on a national level. Very often we encounter this perspective that there's only 3 players on the global stage, and please remember this is a very Polish-centered perspective because this is a Polish campaign, but at least from the Warsaw understanding of this situation, there is the US, there is China, and there is the European Union trying to establish some kind of framework, but also being lobbied all the time by the biggest companies. So there was low belief that something is possible on a Polish level. But over the coming months, we tried to show that there is this possibility. And we tried to talk about all levels, all those 3 levels that we mentioned of digital sovereignty. And over the course of these months, this belief rose. So more people started accepting the idea that, for example, fiscal policy is possible. So digital tax, increasing the possibilities of tax authorities to check whether there's infringements of tax law in e-commerce, for example, where Chinese e-commerce is in the game, or when Amazon enters the space. We managed to talk about alternative data management models, so how even local communities, even cities can reclaim control over some data from some platforms to create better public policies and to give more power to their citizens. So in this small specific surgical even operations or laws, we started to understand that it is possible on a national level, even though it might be easier and more comprehensive on a supranational level. Now, in the end, we tried to establish this common charter and try to establish what is possible on this national level. What can we fight for so that it is achievable, but at the same time, it is ambitious or bold. We had a couple of points, and here I'm just mentioning 5 of them because we find them very important. First of all, greater efficiency of tax collection system. And this is especially important for all countries which are developing and for countries which are peripheral countries or semi-peripheral countries. Poland, even though it is a member of the developed countries club and it is a member of the European Union, still in many ways, if you look at many data, is still underdeveloped. So, and there were for a longer period of time, we had a huge problems with tax leakages, with leakage of public value, with tax avoidance. and tax havens. So tax collection is crucial here. Then we believe that effective protection of consumers and small and medium enterprises is possible on a national level, because for now competition authorities are located on a state level, and for them to have extended powers, for example, to have greater powers to review documents, to enforce, for example, algorithmic impact assessments, to know how algorithms are used against consumers or against SMEs, as we know, for example, how Amazon, to bring this example again, used this algorithms against some shops, some small shop owners. So the new competitions, new powers of competition authorities, of data protection authorities, all of them are located on a national level. So giving them more powers and greater transparency, so they constantly collect data from platforms and know what is going on and can enforce stronger standards is possible. And then also we realized that to a large extent, it is public tenders in the countries, and it is public infrastructure of data, which is on a state level, that can allow a socially beneficial creation of AI. So here, even though the European Union proclaimed the creation of common data spaces, as experts, we still don't see a common strategy and how these data spaces should look like. So for now, even nation states can create this by, for example, creating legal obligations for some platforms to provide data to these common data spaces, for example, for healthcare data, and then pulling also data from the public healthcare system. So creating huge data spaces, these data commons, and then providing access to data commons to only those AI developers who want to bring socially beneficial AI in the public interest. This is what we found is a possibility for digital sovereignty and this creation of public infrastructure in the most efficient way. But also, as I mentioned already, we realized that it is not possible to have a versatile, comprehensive, an overhaul of how we see now the digital space. For example, a complete remaking of what is possible, of what mechanisms can be used, of how platforms can operate and how they cannot. And that's why we also supported from the beginning, as we drafted the Polish charter, we supported the European Union initiatives. So the creation of Digital Services Act and the new competition tool. We believe that the introduction of ex-ante mechanisms, so the deny list for all the unfair market practices which destroy the fair competition is crucial, and enhancing interoperability, not only by giving data owners, users, the rights of moving data, the data portability, but also introducing mandatory data sharing and strong prevention from gatekeeping is necessary. In the most radical, but we can say that necessary also step, we believe that there should be some kind of decoupling, just as we had decoupling on the energy market, on railway market. We should also have a decoupling of platforms as infrastructure, so the data they hold and the accounts they hold, for example, from the services they provide to the consumers, for example. And then monitoring activities of platforms is crucial. I see a lot of Q&As happening now. So before I finish, I will also answer. There's a question from Wolfgang. If you want to strengthen national digital sovereignty, what will be the consequences for a global, interoperable, and unfragmented free internet? Thank you so much for this question. I think that digital sovereignty is on a national level is mostly related to local socioeconomic consequences. So, for example, unfair practices of a specific company towards specific small and medium enterprises on this level. If we have, for example, the Digital Services Act that allows for deny listing some of these practices, then the data collected and the cases collected by these national competition authorities will be great proof and great material to create these deny lists in the best way. In terms of interoperability, this is why we support it, especially on a EU level. Creation of common protocols, common standards, setting those standards and then enforcing them on companies could be the way to create innovation by regulation. So I'm in the midst of doing this study, but I've seen also similar studies that GDPR had also an influence to boost innovation, because for a lot of companies, it created very strong incentive, this kind of like regulatory incentive to revise how they collect data, how they monitor data, how they protect rights of users and of data owners. So by bringing this strong mandatory data sharing, mandatory interoperability and exercising it, we will create this strong push for a lot of companies. And at least the EU, if EU would introduce very strong interoperability, it would be a push of the largest economic bloc on the planet. So that could also, impact everyone to start thinking about interoperability very, very seriously. Another question from Monica. How would you make sure that DSA and Polish version of DSA will not be contradictory? And if they do the same, what is the need for a Polish version? So the problem is that we are not sure how the DSA on the EU level will end looking like. We see last week we had this leak from Google of how they plan to influence policymaking and how they want to smear also some specific politicians. Thierry Breton, the commissioner, was specifically singled out as a person that Google wants to target as a person. So we are not sure if some of the very bold and ambitious regulations in the DSA will not be, some kind of softened or even completely taken out of the regulation. So the idea for Polish Charter of Digital Sovereignty is mostly to boost the authorities that we have now in the country, to tighten the fiscal system, to introduce, for example, the digital tax, but a digital tax that's strictly based on the model that the European Commission itself has presented. So a temporary solution that if the EU accepts something bolder and something better, we can retract it and then become a part of the larger initiative. Please remember that for the longest period of European history, the EU laws were created like this. So on national level, there were some laws which were to some extent compatible, to some extent non-compatible. Some of them were better and worse. There was a revision of them, and then in the end they were harmonized and standardized. So we also believe that having this national level of stronger authorities could be also, like another nudge towards Brussels, so that they try to introduce just bolder regulation. Another question from Monica: how to create national champions, because the EU tried unsuccessfully in several instances. Yes, that's true. the unsuccessful initiatives were very saddening. But also please remember that the unsuccessful initiatives were done on a on the terms of predatory capitalism, of the surveillance capitalism. And so we lost with the digital global capitalism center in Silicon Valley. But now, after years, I would say that after 20 years, because that was from the dot-com bubble, where these business models were revised and the most predatory survived, or emerged out of dot-com bubble. So after this 20 years, we see that it is not about having the fastest growing, the most, move fast and break things application or software. It is about creating one that secures a lot of European values, that secures democracy, human rights, fair competition, all of those values that we hold so dear. And that means that maybe this time, to create this kind of platforms, we should first of all think what principles we want them to hold. Like, for example, make them interoperable from the very beginning. Create them so that they are not only technological innovations, but also social innovations. Like, for example, make them in a cooperative model. Platform cooperativism is a growing idea, and maybe instead of being a Facebook, a very predatory model, which has this oversight board, which has not overseen a single decision yet till now, maybe we should do it the other way. So involve citizens and involve NGOs from across Europe, for example, to be in the process of creation of such a platform from the very scratch. In that way, we could build something very differently for the digital economy to be, competitive by design, to be to hold human rights by design, etc., etc. I think this way, and moving towards public infrastructure and public platforms is crucial as well. I'm sorry, it's not in this. Yeah, this is actually the last slide, so it is not covered by this presentation. But during our last meeting, which was in October, a lot of coalition members who also are related to academia or have something in common with the academia mentioned that it is very weird that virtually all Polish universities switched to Microsoft Teams as the main platform. I mean, even now, as the Internet Governance Forum, we are holding this session over Zoom, which is a corporate platform. And in the beginning of this pandemics, we know that Zoom was also collecting data about workers, so doing surveillance, if the employers wanted this. Later on, they retracted this functionality. So to speak the truth, they retracted it. But it is very disturbing that we do not have, maybe not open source, but at least public platforms as public digital utilities. And maybe this is the space for nation states and for digital sovereignty to step in first, since infrastructure was always the in the hands of nation states. And a question from Daphne: what will your next steps be with regards to the coalition? Thank you so much. So we participated in the European consultations, and we still do it, and we still try to reach out to European Parliament members to inform them how we see the EU side. But we also keep on talking to local politicians, to Polish politicians. Last week we had like a small hearing of some kind in the Polish Parliament, especially on the digital surveillance and on using technology to surveil workers and to surveil also small and medium enterprises on platforms. So we try to keep on advocating, influencing, talking to decision makers and politicians. We are not sure if it will go towards a full bill, because Monica's questions were right that it's kind of pointless to introduce a Polish bill and have a European bill at the same time. But for sure, we will try to having a couple of these ideas that the coalition agreed on. We will try to take those ideas and put them in different other bills, or when a specific bill appears, we will try to go and say, hey, actually, this competition authority could also have these other instruments that we found which relate to digital space. So maybe we will try to form like a minimum bill out of those ideas and out of those works, and maybe we will try to enforce other bills that are in the making. For sure, we have also very huge strikes now in Poland related to a complete abortion ban by the ruling government and the Supreme Court. So there is also a lot of talks about creating a different program for a future when there would be a change of government possibly. So we also try to inform the opposition leaders. So talk to everyone, inform everyone. This is now our perspective. That's why we also wanted to have such a broad coalition, from unions to to fiscal policy experts. So we see all sides of this problem. Let me check the Q&A again. I don't see any more. So I will stop sharing for a second.
This is your host speaking. This is your IGF host speaking. If this is the last chance to ask a question using the Q&A, otherwise we run out of time, and we will be shortly closing down this session. Thank you.
Okay, if you would like to learn more about these initiatives and what we do, not everything is translated into English, but some of it, especially EU consultations, are. Then please visit the website www.instrat.pl.
Thank you very much, Jan.
Accept questions.
Thank you very much, Jan, and big thanks to everybody for participation at the IGF 2020. Please leave your feedback through the form. You will be automatically redirected to upon session closure. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thanks everyone for participating. Goodbye.